Today, in Victoria 3, I will take on one of the hardest challenges in the game, the free city of Krakow. This small poor patch of land is the last remnant of Poland's former might, now surrounded by the greatest powers, Russia, Prussia and Austria. My goal is not only to survive and avoid being annexed by Austria, Krakow's overlord, but also to show you step by step how to restore the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and achieve this very difficult accomplishment. To succeed, I'll need to turn Krakow into a powerhouse and significantly increase both its army and navy, because right now, as you can see, everything is at zero. But the hardest part will be playing the great powers against one another, since they have a three-way defensive pact. This will be one of those campaigns. Will I manage to reverse the course of history and lead Krakow to glory? Find out for yourselves. Greetings imperialists, Lucas here. Europa Universalis 5 is now available for pre-purchase. I also got an affiliate link from Paradox, so if you'd like to support my channel when buying it, I'd appreciate it if you use it. It's in the pinned comment. And if for now you're in the mood for other games, remember about this channel's longtime partner, ENEBA, a great place for shopping. Because on ENEBA you can find tons of cheap games and more. The link is as always in the description, recommended by me, Lucas. And with this code, it's even cheaper this weekend. But let's get back to playing Krakow, which at the start of the game is a vassal state of Austria. That's problematic now, because in patch 1.9 it's much harder to break free than it was just one version earlier. This is because Prussia, Austria and Russia start out with a defensive pact that lasts 15 years, and the AI doesn't always break that pact afterward. Sometimes it lasts 20 to 25 years. It all depends on luck. And honestly, on how quickly Prussia takes control over Germany. Another issue is that Austria can annex us fairly easily if we don't start countering it. Of course, if they do, well GG, well played, we can all go home. But to prevent this, just two things need to be done. First, start worsening relations with Austria. The worse the relations, the slower the annexation process. And increase Krakow's independence desire by asking Austria for things they'll definitely refuse. For example, access to our own market. When they refuse, we gain some independence points. Besides, Austria doesn't like our government anyway. And these two actions we repeat every 5 years. After that, we can basically move on to the government tab and our laws. In this respect, Krakow is a very unique country and probably has the best situation in the world. We have laissez-faire, free trade, total separation of church and state, and a private school system. Of course, there are also problems here. For example, national supremacy, no healthcare system, an outdated tax system, and migration control. Before changing anything, let's go to the government tab to replace who's in power with the intelligentsia and industrialists. In national movements, we also have the liberal movement, and it's worth boosting. That will let us introduce many modern laws soon. And going back to laws, at first you might think it's good to implement per capita taxes. Nothing could be further from the truth. My ultimate tax goal is the proportional system, and it's very hard to switch from per capita to proportional. But going from worse forms of taxation to proportional is much easier. Still, we'll first need to research that taxation method. Fortunately, as Krakow, we can research it very quickly, and that will be my first research goal. My second will be pharmaceuticals, because they'll let me introduce public healthcare, probably the best system in the game. And the third will be the corporate charters, to actually get corporations. Krakow has very little population, so for now I need to focus on migration. Public healthcare I'll only be able to implement in about 6 years at the earliest. Migration issues can basically be solved in two ways here. Either get rid of migration controls entirely, allowing anyone to come to Krakow. But that would be somewhat problematic. Migration control means only cultures we accept can come in, so those with plus 60. So for now, we only accept Poles. Other cultures won't migrate to Poland, and even if some migrated here, they'd fall into a group where we openly discriminate against them, which can cause problems. So for now, people will be reluctant to move to Krakow anyway. That's why Krakow must become a more tolerant country and change its citizenship laws, ideally to cultural exclusion, but segregation could work as well. Back to the political map, we definitely want to improve relations with Prussia. That country must support our independence. Without Prussia, there is no free Krakow, no free Poland. Russia can basically be ignored, it will always side with Austria. Another country worth noting is Great Britain. We should also improve relations there. Later, of course, France, the Ottoman Empire, and whoever else we can get. Basically, every ally helps. And we've got 15 years for that anyway. Let's move on to construction. We start with a logging camps, super profitable and quick to build, then an iron mine, and finally a tools factory. After that, I'll tell you what else I'll be building. But we're not building any production sectors because Krakow is just too poor. Alright, now let's set up a sphere of interest, and I think this region is best. That way, I can improve relations with the Ottoman Empire too. Inside Krakow itself, I think we can issue a few decrees. Road maintenance, social mobility, definitely greener grass. And for now, I'll focus on the raw materials industry. And I think that's about it for the starting setup. I think. Great! After a moment, I already have very poor relations with Austria, which means my independence desire is now growing automatically. And after creating the sphere of interest, I start improving relations with the Ottoman Empire. Only I'd need more diplomatic influence, which I can't get since I can't have rivals. Production methods, right? It's also worth mentioning that Krakow has privatization enabled everywhere. That comes from Luciferianism. Yes, that exactly. So every building we put up will slowly become privatized. That should help Krakow's budget. As for the production methods themselves, I set more modern ones, but avoid luxury goods. On the Austrian market, hardly anyone wants them. And that's about it, there really isn't much more in Krakow. I might even demolish the university soon. Though for now, it's not too expensive. As for migration, not many people will move to Krakow yet, even though we already have that stat fairly high. That's because of the unaccepted cultures. So yeah, now it's speed 5 and lots of waiting. So cross your fingers that the law passes quickly. Meanwhile, as soon as I notice that the trade center is approaching its throughput cap, I'll increase its number, but only by 1 to 2 levels, because Krakow won't need more for now. This matters because we need Krakow to have access to the global market. Wow! I could have checked that infrastructure earlier. That changes my bill queue a bit. Great! Cultural exclusion passed in less than a year, so thanks for keeping your fingers crossed. And now, basically, all the cultures that share European roots with us can migrate to Poland. Well, to Krakow actually, which has already started. At first, every new culture that appears will get an unaccepted modifier, but that will fall to 0 over time. The next law I'm passing is dedicated police forces, because the intelligentsia and all my other friends, I want the intelligentsia's support because it boosts migration by 30%. Although right now migration is increased by 100% because the intelligentsia makes up a large social group, over 20%. So at the moment, Krakow has very strong support for both social and industrial research. I also saw that mechanical tools will come from tech diffusion. That will let me research the locomotive earlier, and I'll need it very quickly. So fast that I'll push everything before corporations just to research up to locomotives. A moment later, I also asked Austria to lower our level of vassalage so I could become a protectorate. Of course, they refused, which increased my independence desire even more. Beautiful. After building the first tool plants, I basically hit my infrastructure cap, although it will grow as our population increases. Now I'll do a bit of fiddling with build ordering. That means when I'm almost finished building a factory, I'll move it down in the queue. And I won't hide it, I've been very lucky in 38 because a pro-Prussian lobby was founded and engineers from the industrialists joined it. Lobbies are an important mechanic because they simply make it easier to conclude favorable treaties with a given country. Another thing is that industrialists will have more support when I act in their interest. I researched egalitarianism at the perfect moment because the dedicated police law just passed. And now why don't I want per capita taxes? For a very simple reason. Per capita taxes lower our population's standard of living, and honestly, I want that standard of living to reach level 15 as quickly as possible. Level 15 living standards have the most beneficial effect on population growth. Sure, it won't be more than a 3% boost to that growth, but since I have 100 years of gameplay to play, it will accumulate nicely. And for smaller countries, it's a better tax system than per capita anyway. Okay, my infrastructure in Krakow increased again, so I'll finish building one factory. Although it might be better to build 2 iron mines, foreign investments in Krakow will also improve my relations with Prussia. Very good. And unfortunately, at the moment when I had just improved relations with the British, some revolution broke out for them. Why does it always end like this? Especially when I was so close to gaining support for independence, because I had an 82% chance. But luckily I see that Great Britain will probably win that civil war, so I'll take the risk. And the Rzeszów decisions made in Krakow come into effect. Although Rzeszów is 150 kilometers from Krakow. In the meantime, I researched precision tools. And I can't believe proportional taxes passed so quickly. I didn't even notice when it came into effect. Now I have to introduce homesteading, property rights for farmers, although I'm not a fan because it strongly empowers farmers. Farms end up more often in the private sector build queue. But the farmers simply forced me to promise to introduce the law. Besides, they're very poor anyway. As for my build queue, I'm now adding coal mine. Because I can already start building my first steelworks, my budget is almost plus 1000, so I think it's a good moment to build the first construction camp. German immigrants need somewhere to work. And I'll switch production methods immediately to an iron frame. I'm also starting to improve relations with the French. Although they aren't very eager to support my independence, at least not yet. Okay, I'm in the red, but I have large cash reserves, so I can afford it, and I still increase my production by 50%. But how did the springtime of the peoples trigger for me? What did I do? I have no idea, but I researched pharmaceuticals. So now the atmospheric engine and then locomotives. But I must watch infrastructure because it's about to run out. So as I said, I'm starting to roll my builds. Okay, my gold reserves are running low. So I'm doing something you might not like. I delete the construction sector. That lets me expand the steelworks and then build one more coal mine. Because my infrastructure increased, then I change production methods to steel tools. Because I have to produce that steel for someone. After researching homesteading, I go for public healthcare. Although it has somehow low support, I add the new buildings to the queue without finishing them. And there we go. Prussian support. That means an 86% chance they'll agree to support my independence. And for 25 years. From what I can see, I won't get help from the Ottoman Empire or France. But I still think it's a good moment to ask to increase my level of autonomy. Because unfortunately, we won't get freedom immediately. Oh wait, I can immediately wage a war for independence. But I don't want to do that. If I declare war to increase autonomy, it will let me keep independent support from Prussia and Great Britain. And from what I see, on Austria's side, only Russia will stand. At the moment, Russia is insanely powerful, and I probably won't win that war. I have to wait until Russia gets tangled in some war of its own. And so I waited for the Turkish-Egyptian war, as a result of which I lost British support. That's looking great. But consolation, I managed to introduce public healthcare. And I immediately upgrade that institution to level 4. I'll just add one more government building. Level 4 hospital gives us +2 to living standards, which will positively affect population growth. But more importantly, it will lower mortality, especially in mines. Level 5 is practically unreachable because it requires that technology. After inventing the atmospheric engine, we want to build automotive plants in Krakow. Or rather just add them to the build queue. Yep, still rolling. And now I'm passing the last law I care about, abolishing migration controls. Holy Prussia just attacked Austria, so I'll probably lose Prussian support soon. And Prussia's attitude towards me worsened. It will be hard to get it back. On top of that, all the battles are happening on my territory. Please don't burn Krakow too much. No, all battles are on this territory. What happened here? Okay, Austria is clearly losing this war, which is good for me. And actually, I think Austria is losing both wars at the moment. Normally, I'd be happy about that loss. Only the Greater Germany state has arisen. Interesting what the future will bring. Alright, I'm not giving up. I managed to regain independent support from Great Britain. And I don't even lose commitments. It will be much worse with the German Federation. So I simply go back to managing the build queue. This is so exciting. I researched nationalism, which means soon I'll be able to send Polish rebels into the occupiers' territories. Atmospheric engine researched and used, which speeds up my locomotive research, which I research immediately. Building the railway will solve a lot of problems in my Krakow, so I put it at the start of the build queue right after administration. And since I noticed I again have very large gold reserves, I add a construction sector to the queue. I abolished migration controls very quickly. And soon crowds should start arriving to Krakow, although the population has already risen significantly. The only problem is I'm blocked by lack of railways. Wow, I can even afford a second construction sector, which significantly increased my country's production. Choo-choo, the first train departs to nowhere, because no one here has railways except me. Luckily, railways are experiencing a real boom, and the time has come to found the first production corporation. Without a doubt, Krakowian metalworks are what Krakow needs. I'll add the remaining specializations too, so everything is in one corporation. Hey, when did they introduce a limit on specializations? Okay, I need to research a different corporation that will let me extract resources efficiently. And I think I'll hurry the research of steel frames. The problem I face now is of course that my build queue is much slower than the private one. That sector takes 75% of my production, but at least the railway got into the build queue. And unfortunately, that private sector sometimes builds stupid farms I don't need. I can't believe it, I did it! No, I can't believe it because I had literally a 20% chance to get all this, and I also paid the Germans 2000 cash each month, and I also have a chance to get support from Turkey. That changes a lot, very much. Now that these three countries support me, nothing remains but to announce an increase in my autonomy. Oh ho ho, Austria is scared. During this war, I'm not really doing anything anyway, so I'll pass another law, this time elected bureaucrats. Besides, let's just fast forward time until the moment we have about 75% progress. Although I can already decide on my claims, since no other country will join on either side. I need the rest of Lesser Poland. Look how many coal mines are here, iron, wood, everything I'll need. Well, maybe sulfur would also come in handy. And I'm a bit tempted to try to take Lublin in this war, but that could still be too heavy a war since I don't have an army. Besides, here in Galicia there are almost 700,000 people I'll be able to turn into workers. That's why I won't be anything very unique and I'll just conquer Galicia. The last treaty I'll want is for them to give me money. About 10,000 will be enough. I didn't take anything from Russia for a very simple reason, then that country would leave the war much faster. Same with Sicily, I didn't take anything from them either. Now let's lock one of these things as the main demand. AI usually doesn't withdraw from a war then. To arms my allies, because I unfortunately have nothing to fight with. And honestly, even if you had something to fight with, it's best not to do it. Because the losses each side will take here will be gigantic, and with my 5,000 troops, I'd very quickly suffer 5,000 losses for example, which would give me 100% exhaustion. And then my side would start losing very quickly. At this point it looks like the Austrian army will be burned out by the German army. Another thing is that this is a very hard period because we were kicked out of the Austrian market. We don't belong to it. Although I don't know how to show you. Oh, I'll show you this way. Here we are, a tiny little Krakow market. And unfortunately, all of our industry will suffer greatly from this. So overall, we want this war to be as short as possible. And this bar informs me about shortages in my country. Basically, I don't really have much to show you because I'm not doing anything here. It all depends on the AI, which has to win this war for me. The Austrians are already losing. And probably as a result of what I mentioned, yes, look at the losses they've taken. And the standard of living in Poland is plummeting. And I won! But why am I at war with Russia? What happened here? Because I won so quickly, I didn't expect that. Fortunately, after this war, I'm still part of the Austrian market, I'll belong to it, nothing bad is happening here. But before the next war, now that I'm a protectorate, I can conduct my own foreign policy, and I'll do that. That's why, before the next war, if I don't forget to show you, it'll be important to obtain transit rights as soon as possible once we declare it, we'll have a moment to secure that. And only from the Germans. Now, from what I see, the Austrian market still lacks a lot of wood, tools and iron. And that's great, because those will be three things I'll be able to expand very quickly in these two provinces. Of course, Eastern Galicia needs to be incorporated, which will be quite costly. What the fuck, minus 300 right away? Well, in that case I'll add more construction sectors and then immediately build more government buildings. I'm also updating production methods to more modern ones, especially filing cabinets. Unfortunately, I also need to enable suppression of unrest in both of my areas. That will speed up my construction because, as you can see, I currently have very high unrest. And I'm checking, but yes, the treaties I've signed are still in effect, even though Germany would now be very unwilling to maintain them. So I still have support for the next war of independence. Alright, now I need to declare a few rivals, basically all those smaller states, and all this is worth doing so that firstly, infamy drops as quickly as possible, and secondly, to start improving relations with countries that are worth improving relations with. And I don't know what this war is, but I'm at war with Russia, some other one, between Egypt and Turkey. But after liberating the first provinces, GDP skyrockets, population skyrockets, standard of living maintained, although now only at a not lowest strata, and I have access to the Austrian market, where I'll want to satisfy all those needs. And I have to build as many mines and logging camps as possible. To have fewer problems after my conquest, it's worth developing the police institution to the maximum. And from decrees, apart from unrest suppression, I gave social mobility everywhere so that my education would rise, because it had collapsed completely. In Galicia, I queue up all logging camps for construction, some more coal mines, and in Lesser Poland I queue up more iron mines. As for the road maintenance law, I'll rotate it between each province where I start construction. Because I don't know if I mentioned it, but the road maintenance law speeds up construction significantly. I can also found another corporation, and I think it'll be West Galicia Premium Metals, because then I'll include both iron mines and coal mines in that corporation. When the level of unrest in a province falls so low that it no longer exists there, then of course the privilege has to be revoked. Oh, it revokes itself. I founded a second corporation. As for the current construction queue, I'm building a lot of logging camps. My truce with the Austrians has ended, but I still have a bit of infamy, so I won't attack yet. especially since I have time to spare. Now I'm also supporting Germany in a war with Sicily. I don't know what's going on here. Doesn't matter. I'm investing heavily in my construction capacity. I have huge gold reserves myself, totaling 1 million, so it'll take a while before it drops by 2,500 gold. I'm not worried about it. And look, the investment pool of my private sector is 4.5 million and still in surplus. What does that mean? That I can build even more construction sectors, because 75% of the value of each sector goes there. But maybe I'll hold off a bit, since soon I'll have steel frame construction and we'll see what happens then. Beautiful! I discovered it, and I think I'm the first country in the world with this construction style. Now I should catch up on the rest of the technologies in the production sector. As you can see, I'm not developing the military one at all, because basically economy first, then the army. I'll start with very light changes in the steel sector, literally in one of them. I'm short on glass and dynamite, and that's fine. And now I've reached a very nice level, because with 100 construction points I'm producing my buildings as fast as I can sell them to the private sector. A moment ago, I had 1 million cash reserves, now already 1.5 million, literally 2 months passed. So yes, I'm sustaining my budget through privatization. Unfortunately, quite a large part of it goes to foreign owners. Sure, the population working there will still pay taxes in Krakow. The problem arises with dividend income, where I won't earn anything, and the private sector's investment pool also won't grow as quickly. But thanks to this, I have huge economic growth. And those buildings can always be nationalized later. In Galicia, I'll set up an explosives factory and, more importantly, a fertilizer factory. And a few more construction sectors. I also signed mutual investment rights with the Ottoman Empire because they have sulfur here. Then I'm building paper mills, glassworks. Next, it's very important to remember to increase the capacity of our global trade. And of course, also to update production methods, which I sometimes forget about. I won't use nitroglycerin in mines because it greatly increases mortality in every social group. We'll only switch to dynamite. And after switching my entire sector to steel construction, I practically tripled my construction capacity. And I'm slightly in the red, but I'm building at full speed. And I hope someone will want to buy these factories. In the worst case, I'll demolish construction sectors. As for my next laws, I think this is a good moment to introduce the right to assembly. But what I'd like most is protected speech, because that speeds up the spread of technology. But I've practically got vertical economic growth. Soon I'll also start earning a lot from selling what's being built here. I've risen to world rank 25. So I think this is the moment to declare independence. All the more so because only Russia will stand on Austria's side. This time, however, I must wait because there's potentially a very long list of countries that could defend Austria. Perfect, although I have one very bad idea. I'll release Poland from the Russians and Hungary from the Austrians. That will totally clean Austria out. I'll also secure that demand, so the war definitely breaks out. So, this time, unfortunately, no war reparations. Well, the war has begun, and now I have to conclude a transit treaty with Germany. In return, I'll supply them with clothes. I'll still come out ahead. Now let everything be recalculated, because it looks really tragic. A rebellion in the Ottoman Empire. Well, that could be a problem. Although I take that back, the German troops have already solved the problem. On the front, now that everything has been recalculated, it doesn't look so bad. It actually looks good. I just need to sell some one tools and steel. The Germans are doing what they always do best, pushing to the east. War with Austria won, so I gained independence and freed Hungary. And I'll immediately conclude resource transfer treaties with Hungary for what I need. Only the Russians remain, but they are also losing badly. Poland is free. And now the best part, I can get it for free. It is enough that this event occurs. However, as usual, I'm unlucky. The Free Poland event didn't happen on my attempt, even though I have 50 positive relationships, so I'll try to conquer Poland in 5 years. Or rather in 4 years. So as you can see, to gain independence as Krakow, you don't need an army at all. Because I still have 0. My market lacks furniture, so I'm building a lot of furniture factories. And then I'm making big investments in trade centers. Unfortunately, I can't sign enough trade treaties to get rid of all those tools, so everything has to go through global trade. And if you look here, you'll see I export quite a lot of those tools. I now need to politically move closer to Germany. I won't give them investment rights, but I'll take their bloc embassy and trade privileges to establish mutual relations. Most likely, the territories from Germany will be the last territories I gain. I'm also designating new spheres of interest, and they'll mostly be Russian territories. For research, I'm moving toward electricity, because that will be a very breakthrough technology. Overall, at this stage of the game I want to get access to car factories as soon as possible. They give an incredibly large income. especially if you are the biggest exporter and have an advantage over the rest of the world. And actually, it's also a good moment to start building an army, because in 2 years I'll be able to attack Poland, and I think 100,000 will be useful. The army composition I always use is 60-30-10. It's always worth having a bit more infantry. Artillery inflicts very large manpower losses on the enemy, and as I've shown you more than once, that's the best way to win a war. And it's also worth having some cavalry, because we inflict manpower losses on the enemy that way too. But more importantly, one battle takes us more territory, so we can win the war faster. Oh, and I even have an artillery commander, great! From intelligence we have a brave gentleman, because this one clearly has problems, we won't hire him. When I set up this whole military system here, I'll see which military resources and products I'm lacking. Oh no, the Germans want me in their great power bloc. I won't join it because leaving it later would be a big problem. And I think it's good I didn't join the great power bloc, because look at the war that's just started. Germany versus the rest of the world. Probably the First World War, just far too early. And they have the Americans on their side, I think. My company already makes prestigious tools. Good, because they will now spread trade in them around the world. I'm already exporting quite a bit. Okay, the moment to attack Poland has come. And I can either make that country my protectorate, fully annex it, or conquer a few provinces. Honestly, I'll probably make it my protectorate, because that will give me few infamy points. In the meantime, either way I'll develop its territories, which will make it more loyal. Thanks to that, I should be able to annex Poland quite quickly. War, looking at the numbers, won't be a problem. Also, making Poland a protectorate protects that country from being grabbed by, for example, the Russians or the Germans, because that could happen. An easy war. And I immediately improve relations with Poland. On Polish territory, in Warsaw, I'll build a lot of glassworks because there's lead there. And in the Płock area, I think we'll build new textiles. I'm also developing the armaments industry, because soon I'll be increasing my army by another 100,000. Okay, I'm approaching GDP of 40 million, so I invested in universities to speed up my research queue. I'm focusing now on electricity, then we'll go for oil, that way it will finally appear for me in Galicia. Next, I will unlock the ability to have another corporation. And I'll start to research toward motoring. And as for Poland, I didn't show you, but at the start I had +8 toward that country's independence growth. Now that's falling, and the more buildings I put in Poland, the faster the process will accelerate. On my labor market, I'm starting to run out of workers, and I'm really badly short of them. At this point, if Poland is already our vassal, we could seize its territory for free by creating some nation. So I might not annex it at all. First, I'd have to take those territories you now see from Russia and from Germany. And maybe I can manage that. I can found a third corporation, and I'll tell you it will be West Galicia Motor, because that will strengthen production of my future cars. Great, it's year 83 and I can ask Poland to join me. Well, not really. And you can tell me what that depends on, why sometimes percentages appear here and sometimes not, with the chance that a country is peacefully annexed. Okay, I'm building another railway in Poland, and then I'll start the conquests, because they somehow don't want to agree peacefully. But they did agree after all. What does it depend on? I don't know. Now I have to add all those territories to incorporate. But first I must add lots of construction sectors, because I really suffer from their lack. And of course manually click production methods, because somehow the automation doesn't work. In all my provinces I also built 5 power plants each, the rest the automation probably built. And I changed wood production methods to electric saws. And basically at this point I'm already the 5th power in the world. I have almost 1,000 construction possibilities, and I've increased the army to 300,000. And look how much exports of tools, railways, furniture from my provinces have grown. The only problem is that I'm running out of space to build new centers. No matter how many I build, I very quickly hit the limit, and in the meantime Ignacy has grown a gigantic beard. I can't believe it, I have a chance to sign a pact with the British, actually with the British Republic, because they've changed. Looks like they followed Krakow's example and handed power over to the industrialists. And in fact, I'll even give the British investment rights in my country, maybe they'll buy something off me. I'm also taking mutual trade privileges. Access to a market like the British on auto is a huge bonus. I'm also taking military assistance from them. It'll strengthen my armies and make my next wars easier. And it worked. Another Rzeszów convention. Let's go back for a moment to my army. For now, I took these mobilization doctrines. It's very important to have the best medicine possible. Morale bonuses should only be taken if they come cheap. Recon is also very important, and supports can be useful too, though often very situational. At this stage of the Krakow playthrough, since I'm getting close to 100 million, my economy is starting to choke. transit rights and automated trade are no longer enough and access to the sea becomes crucial. And honestly, I'm afraid to fight Germany without it, because the British won't help me. That's why I'm attacking Russia to take the province of Kovno. The British will join. Great. But do I even need their help? Let's try without it. For now, I'll leave the offensive slowed down, only letting one general attack with the heavy barrage modifier. That should completely bleed out the Russian army's manpower, meaning that blue bar. I'll wait until diplomatic maneuvers reach 79% and then I'll release Belarus. And I'll also release Ukraine. How do you like that? And honestly, to win this war, I only need to occupy this territory, this province here and that one, and the war is won. I also managed to implement mass conscription, but again, I've got 0 conscripts. Why? As for my offensive, I'm pushing without much trouble. I advanced first towards Ukraine, and from what I can see, I'm literally grinding the Russian army down. I've got a huge advantage on the front. In one battle, I killed nearly 3 times as many as I lost and inflicted twice as many wounded. What do these numbers mean? Dead means the bot will have to refill manpower reserves. That mostly depends on the training method set in your barracks. Well, mostly, since there are a few other factors. Wounded, a portion of them return to the army every month or every week, since a lot of stuff in this game is calculated weekly. And of course, that number depends on the recovery rate modifier. So wounded give us a temporary advantage on the front. Oh, the British attacked the Russians. Ha! I'm grinding the Russians on the front hard, really grinding them. So there's no point in talking more about this war, it's going to be won. In the meantime, I researched the motorized industry. But honestly, I don't have the population to expand it. Beautiful, free Belarus and Ukraine, at least for a while. And I immediately worsen relations with them, because yes, they're my next conquest targets. Kovno will be super important for me, so I'm integrating that province. I also need to build more railways here, civilian ports, military ports, wood, never too much of that. And with wood, I need to add some power plants and more ports. In general, I want as many ports here as possible. Because now, with direct access to the sea without transit rights, well, I still have them from Germany, the option goods transfer should appear in territories you don't border. This lets you sign separate treaties for resource deliveries. And I've got way too many tools. I need new workers so badly that I'll be implementing women's suffrage, since it gives me access to the largest possible pool of workers. Unfortunately, I've already passed level 15 standard of living in my country, so natural growth dropped heavily. And the country you absolutely must trade with is China. From them you can get huge amounts of basic resources you otherwise can't. And I could supply lots of my processed goods in return. Just maybe not too much at once, since I don't have that many convoys yet. Oops, I managed to get Belarus as a protectorate without war. The problem is, they've got a revolt and nothing seems to be happening with it. Luckily, that civil war ended. Now I'm researching trench infantry technology, and I increased my army to 400,000. In Krakow, I'm also doubling my number of universities. I'm modernizing my whole army. It takes a while, so you've got to wait, and I didn't even notice, but I can already restore Poland, which I do. A glorious union. On top of that, it now gives me claims on provinces and the ability to take them at a lower cost. If I'm going to attack Germany, I need to reorganize my army a bit. Right now we've got trench infantry, shrapnel artillery and soon siege artillery. That makes cavalry practically useless at this point. Later better units will come, light tanks, and then they will be worth adding again. I also modernized my army's medicine methods and added scouts. And so my time doesn't go to waste, I'll make Ukraine my protectorate. And Ukraine agreed peacefully too. Alright, this is the moment. Across the country I'm short tens of thousands of workers, so I'm switching everything to more efficient heating methods and so on, just to get back some people. The best part of my conquest is that I basically pulled in the entire population of both Belarus and Ukraine. Look, everyone moved to Poland, judging by which nations now make up Krakow's population. And more than that, everyone keeps migrating to my Poland. It's a big problem for me. Though not entirely. Look how OP car factories are. I didn't even finish building my extra 50 and the private sector already built 200. These stats speak for themselves. I just overtook Germany in prestige. But unfortunately, in army strength, I'm just behind them. By 1914, my infamy had dropped a lot, and honestly, I prepared an army of 700,000. If this army doesn't win, I don't know how I'd beat Germany. I'll call in the Americans. And as my army went into battle, I realized I'm short on ammo because its costs skyrocketed. Alright, I'm adding the rest of my provinces to my demands. They are mine anyway, since they're Polish provinces. I also thought about nationalization, but it looks like it's not worth it, since Germany has literally just 3 buildings in my land. Oh, this will be a bloody war, look at the factions on both sides. We'll see who takes the heaviest losses in the end. God, that number is so big, I'm surprised my computer isn't exploding. Ah, I see an all-out offensive. The key thing is that in Octania and the Netherlands, Octania is here, by the way, because it broke away from France. Octania, bear in mind, I've been watching a lot of Mad Max lately. My allies are holding off some massive numbers of Germans, Mexicans, and I'm giving the Germans a beating on the front. That bar shows they've basically lost 2/3 of their army here, which really means about 100 actual battalions, not 300. At this stage, it's definitely better to attack, since you get huge offensive bonuses instead of just defending. Jesus, I'm grinding them down. In America, the US is about to invade Canada, but there's peace and quiet on the Mexican front, and the rest of the world doesn't matter. Canada falls first. I could have nationalized hundreds of their buildings. Meanwhile, I've taken Silesia and Poznan. Brazil fell. And I see the Americans are moving against Mexico. West Prussia fell, so I am moving on East Prussia. Belgium fell too, another German ally, which gave the Netherlands an advantage on the front. And I also see Occitania's troops gaining the upper hand against Sardinia-Piedmont. I think I've given Germany a serious overkill here. But hey, this whole game is a diplomatic campaign anyway. I wonder if you could restore the Commonwealth without an army. And Sardinia's gone. Ukraine became my vassal in the meantime. And when Prussia fell, I marched on Berlin, especially since on this front I've got a huge advantage, no German army left. What a blitzkrieg without tanks. And the whole war ended with my great victory. I defeated the strongest army in the world, the German one. But that's still not the end. To finish this achievement, I need to complete the entire journal entry about rebuilding the Commonwealth. Yes, the second advent of the Commonwealth. And as always, I'll choose tolerance of our brothers. So now I'm creating the Polish-Lithuanian Union, as strange as it looks. A glorious union, where I took part of Ukraine's and Belarus's territories. But still, that's not the end, the Commonwealth can grow further. I just need to wait until 1920. So in the meantime, I'll focus on incorporating my newly conquered territories, which are really backward. Though not all, some very odd settings are there. But for example, equipment. They don't use railways at all. No idea why. A lot of clicking ahead of me, nothing like selling thousands of barrels of oil to America. Now I'll focus on inventing another corporation, and finally on researching tanks. I'm firing up coal power plants which will run in Poland for the next 200 years. Funniest thing is, that's not even a joke. The first skyscraper in the world is being built in Krakow. I'm integrating Ukraine, though not in a very peaceful way. And as you can see, I already have planes in my army. Jesus, I'm taking huge chunks at once. One battle and half of Ukraine falls to me. Now it's Belarus's turn, they just surrendered. And yep, achievement unlocked. Welcome brothers to the United Commonwealth, a beautiful sight. And I'll tell you, the Krakow campaign is way easier than with a released Poland. I struggled much less, and I'm finishing as the second great power in the world, even overtaking the USA. Let me also show you Krakow. Look, this province produces literally 50% of Poland's GDP. It's home to 35 million people, nearly half the population. And wealth is at 24, while the national average is 21. An incredible province, I've probably never made one this powerful before. I've also got nearly 1000 levels of trade centers here. And even that's not enough, the flow of goods here is massive, especially Polish cars. Krakow turned out beautiful, didn't it? And my income is looking really good too. Remember, you can support me in building a great Poland in Europa Universalis 5 by buying it through the affiliate link. Every single zloty will go to the common levy, seriously. And if you want to learn to play this game as well as I do, I hope this guide from Belgium helps you.